Good morning everyone and welcome to our live chat today. I have a special guest with me who I'm going to introduce shortly. I'm just going to allow about 30 seconds for people to join because Facebook's always on delay, and so we'd love to have as many people on live as possible. If you are watching this on replay and if you're watching this live, just be aware that we actually have a special prize up for grabs today, which you're going to hear more about. So make sure you actually watch until the end because you'll hear how to enter then. So now that we've given a little bit of time, I'm going to introduce our guest. I have got a very, I guess, not just interesting, but well sort of sought after lady here today. She's got lots of tips, advice, and known as a bit of a guru to parents. So this is Sharlene Poole, and we are going to be talking about her new book today, and it's today that it's released. Yes,
it is launch day. Yeah.
So if the name sounds familiar, you may have or have heard of her first book, which was called Baby Whispering. That's right.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be talking about her second book called Toddler Whispering. And I'm just firstly going to get her to introduce a little bit, tell us a little bit about herself, why she came to be known as a bit of a guru and a baby whisperer, and a great help to desperate parents. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your background and how you got that name for yourself?
All by accident. Following your heart and following something that you love, really. So I trained in early childhood in Christchurch, so coming up to 30 years ago almost. And so that was from 0 to 7, and so I started off thinking I was actually going to be a preschool teacher and do that sort of line, and then when I graduated I decided to do the London OHbaby, and the family I was nannying for had a maternity nurse, which is a British job where you go in when the baby's born and you stay for the first 9 weeks, get them settled. So I thought, oh, that sounds great, but I was very young, so I did my stint as a nanny, came back as a preschool teacher for 4 years, daycare preschool teacher, and then went back and did some more travel and went into that newborn industry. And thinking I'd finished my travel, came home to New Zealand, and some friends of mine said, look, what you know and what you're offering us in knowledge needs to be shared.
Very valuable.
Yeah, so back then, 15 years ago this May, I started Little Miracles postnatal care and thought I would just be doing babies, you know, the newborn phase. But as the years went on with demand of New Zealand mothers, it actually worked out that the biggest demand is sort of 4 months plus.
Yes.
So everyone muddles through those first few weeks, lots of people are helping, giving advice, and then suddenly they're like, what next?
Yes.
And then accidentally ended up on TV and was labelled the baby whisperer because I didn't call myself that. And after 6 years on Good Morning, I started to think about having a child myself, and so now I have George, who's 2.5, and Tia, who's 8 months old, and I was approached to write another book, which is been labelled Toddler Whispering, but it's actually covering the toddler age group, which is sort of under 2.5 roughly, and the preschool age group, which is 2.5 to 5 roughly, or up to 7 in a way really. And so a lot of people who brought Baby Whispering had said, well, hang on a minute, what happens
what
next?
do I do now?
You've finished right at 12 months, so what do the routines, how do they go? And so that was part of the encouragement to write it, was actually a lot of parents do need a little bit more help. It's not just the baby days.
No, the baby doesn't, the child doesn't know what they're doing half the time. The parent doesn't know as well. I'm just trying to muddle through and figure it out.
Yeah.
So we're actually going to give away a copy of this at the end of the video, which I mentioned just a little earlier. So at the end we're going to ask some questions for you to answer in the comments, and we will draw a winner on Thursday. So I'd imagine this book would be quite a hot prize for a lot of people who have a 1 to 5 year old. It's definitely something I'm super curious to open myself because I've got 14-month-olds, so I'm totally in that zone right now. And I do have older children too, but each child has been quite different.
Yeah.
So, I'll take all the help I can get. But gosh, I was just thinking though, a maternity nurse for 9 weeks, did you say?
Yeah, so
quite nice.
24 hours a day, 6
Oh my
days
gosh.
a week. It was amazing.
Is that quite normal over there?
No. So for
Okay.
the, let's say, either aristocrats or wealthy families, or when I ended up working around 12 different countries around the world because of expats, so when you go to have a baby in another country, you've got no support. So it's a really lovely way.
It's good.
And it's funny because when I started doing it, a few people in New Zealand said, "What? Don't they want to bring up their baby on their own?" And I was like, actually, that's a really negative response. We all need support when we have a baby.
Yeah.
And while this was a luxury, it actually was a
Yeah.
really beautiful way to have a baby because I cooked all the meals. I also taught them how to parent, but I gave them rest.
Yes.
So it was gorgeous. Yeah.
Yes, and some cultures actually do pitch in more, but in New Zealand I think a lot of people are doing it alone.
You'll be right.
You'll be right. You'll figure it out. Hopefully you'll survive in the process.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I've got some questions here. You did mention that it covers quite a wide age bracket. So the book's kind of split into two sections.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so the
under toddlers is under 2.5, and then the preschool is over 2.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. So you can keep the book for a number of years and refer back to it when you need to get to the next stage.
But like my first book, it hasn't been designed to sort of sit down and read from start to end. You kind of refer to it when a question comes into your head, like, oh, my child's doing this, so I wonder what Sharlene says about that.
I wonder if this is normal.
Yeah.
How do I survive this phase?
And also it's sort of, it's not what I say, or like with everything is, it's not the absolute answer, and it's not what I believe is the only way, but it's what I call a starting point.
Yeah.
So it's like if parents have got questions, you go to it and you refer to it, and you might say, I don't really want to do that. Wonder if there's a different way, but it's a really good way of looking at options and saying, okay, this is what Sharlene's experience most New Zealand families are asking or wanting to know about. This is from her experience what can work, but I'm going to look and see if there's other options. So it's a good starting point.
But so a lot of your your
advice.
A lot of it's come from, because you work quite closely with families directly as well, right? So that's you're well selected to consult with people. So I guess a lot of what you've written about will be based on
all of
what you've come across over the years with people.
Yeah. So with my first book and with this book, it's based on what are the common questions that parents come to me with, because that is what the public are wanting.
So with that in mind, what would be some of the hot topics or like the common questions that you get asked about that age bracket for the 1 to 5 year olds?
So commonly fussy eating, toilet training, tantrums, a huge part on how to deal with that.
It's just so relatable,
sleeping and routines. So why is my child, who used to be a great sleeper, not sleeping well anymore? Or they used to lie down and go to sleep really beautifully. Now they're challenging me and getting out of their bed, or when do I move them to a bed rather than the cot? And so, those really basic, simple things.
Okay. And honestly, sleep is something I don't think I really thought about it much until I had my first baby, and then I think I googled sleep like a ridiculous amount of times in that first year of his life, and probably talked about it more than any other topic, because I was actually in shock. I just didn't know that a baby actually doesn't know how to sleep like an adult. It's a totally different thing.
No, and some unnatural sleepers, like adults.
Not mine, but
and this comes down to the different personalities. So I really talk about in this book, like my first, about respecting individual babies' personalities, because there isn't one style fits all method, but there's definitely, if you look at your child's personality, you go, okay, I do need to look at a different, doing something slightly different because my child, it doesn't suit them.
I like that, because you get given advice, and when you get given advice from someone who's had the textbook trial of the aim for child, sometimes it's quite useless and frustrating.
It actually can be really demoralising.
Because what have I done wrong? What's wrong with my child?
We think, it's my parenting, and I go, actually, your child's really sensitive, and your child is actually like you or your husband. So if you or your husband struggle with sleep, generally you're going to
Interesting.
breed a
Yes.
child that's child.
Okay, that's my fault actually.
Yeah.
I've got bad
a
sleep
live
as well.
one.
Yeah. But you know, they do have there's the plus side to having live
there's
ones. So-
brilliant side. yeah.
Okay, so in regards to toddler sleep and I guess preschool sleep as well, which is always a super hot topic.
Yes.
Just never dies. Tell us about maybe like some of the different nap phases or stages that you cover in your book, because it's not just like they have a nap and then it ends.
No.
There's always like,
No.
do they need 2? Do they need 1? When
Yeah.
do they transition? What happens if this doesn't work? Tell
So
us
I
about
cover basically when that roughly between sort of 12 and 14 months or 14 and 16 months, they're going to move from 2 sleeps a day down to 1 sleep a day.
Yeah.
And how you transition that, because a lot of parents go, oh my gosh, they're not settling at night, right, I'm going to quickly move them to 1 sleep, but they haven't considered what they're doing in that week. So I talk about how to do it gradually.
Yes.
So it might be that 3 days a week they have 1 sleep,
Yeah.
but the other days they go back to 2.
It's like that transition phase, isn't it?
Always
Yeah.
talking about transition, not black and white.
Yeah.
And also how some children are ready to go to 1 sleep as early as 10 to 12 months, but the majority are 14 to
Totally
16
depends on the
months.
baby and knowing the signs.
Exactly.
Look,
So I talk about those signs. I also talk about the phases of going down. They might settle really well, but suddenly at night they don't, and they're taking and they think everyone blames behaviour. Oh, my child doesn't like this and that. And I go, well, stop. First, think about what you're doing in your week. Are they going to daycare? Are they going to preschool? What time are you doing bath time? What time are you doing dinner time? Because bath time's a huge point I talk about in the fact that it gives them a reboot, whereas as a newborn, it was a relaxant.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I never thought about that, but it's true.
So 90% of my clients have spirited children in life.
That's why they come to you.
That's why they come to me.
Yeah.
And so I always say to them, where do you do bath time and what time?
Yeah.
And they say, between sort of 6 and 7.
Yeah.
And I go, and
they play in the bath at their age.
exactly.
It's fun.
And so they've gone from a lovely sort of sitting down, eating their meal, and then they go into a bath and suddenly they get up and they go crazy. Now some children, like my son, can go crazy, but because of me doing, knowing what to do, he can still go to bed and settle well.
Yeah.
But parents who don't have the confidence to set some boundaries, then their child will bounce off the walls, get a second wind, and then pose problems. So that's what I cover in the book about, is think about where you're placing those times. And a lot of people go, well, my husband gets home from work, or I don't get home from work, so we have to do it late. And I go, well, maybe a bath isn't the best idea. Maybe you should think about doing it at a different time.
Other ways to bond. I was just thinking, as you were saying that sometimes there's a couple of you can disagree on things. And it might be quite good for both spouses to read the book and go, okay, cool, we're aligned on that.
Absolutely, yes.
Alright, let's go on to some more questions. So another topic which actually gets some people quite scared is toilet training. I was quite fearful actually with my first, because there were people toilet training their kids all around me, and I was just like, I have no clue. And I think my sister-in-law had said, oh, my girls were great, they were really easy, and I had a boy, different
I was
story.
just about to say, different sex plays a massive role.
So this is in your book too, right?
Yes,
the section on toilet training?
It is.
Okay.
So the section on toilet training, I bring up the point of the time of year you choose to do it. So definitely summer is going to be easier than winter because of the layers of clothes. And when you come to a boy particularly, often boys don't like the hassle of it.
Yes.
And so if you've got to take too many clothes off, or they're outside and they're in overalls in the mud, and then they've got to, it's a bit of a pain. Yeah. So sometimes I go, look, if you were planning to do it when they were 2 or 3, maybe it'd be 2.5 or 3.5 because the season would be better, and they can run around naked a bit more. They can be a bit more freestyle and do a bit of a wee in the garden versus on a potty or in the bathroom, which boys particularly like. I also talk about in that toilet training area is you have to be prepared to set aside time. You can't just go, right, we're going to start next week, but then still go to activities.
Yeah,
where
kind
they're
of
going
stay home.
where they're going to go in and out of nappies. Well, some children will just go, oh, I can't be bothered.
Yeah, and they rebel too if you push them, eh?
Yeah, and my son's going through this at the moment, so I've had a potty. He knows what to do, but typical boy can't be bothered. I'm going to choose to do it when I want to. So he has mastered doing a bowel motion on the potty, but he has told me, poo mummy. And I go, great, do you want to go on the potty or in your nappy? Potty. And I go, great, let's do it. But then the next day I'm not interested.
No.
That's what I talk about, allowing them to be a little bit independent. Don't force them.
Yeah. It's tricky age too because they're trying to figure out where their boundaries are and where they can be more assertive and all of that as well.
And then of course bringing in preschool and daycare. Are they on board to support you in this process as well? Because that can be, some of my clients say, well, to be able to go to this preschool they have to be fully toilet trained. And that puts a lot of pressure on them to say, well, I'm going to do it because it suits them, not my child or us. So I cover those sort of things.
That's good. And that's the sort of stuff you need to just get a bit of reassurance on as well, because it is quite daunting and there is that pressure.
I was just about to say, there actually isn't a right time. If your child's 4, it doesn't matter. And if your child's 2, that's fantastic. It's just when it's right for your family.
I think it's especially when it's your first. When it's you're onto your second or your third, you're like, it will happen, I know it will happen. But when it's your first, it is actually quite it's big thing.
It is. But that's like starting solids. Mums with babies, they go, starting solids, and I go, it's not a big thing. It's very natural.
Third time around, you're just like, you can just have a Okay, so for for a lot of our audience, they will probably be in the stage of transitioning from one child to 2 or 2 to 3. And you've just been through that recently, so and there's a section in your book on that too.
There is sibling adjustment.
Cool. So do you have any quick insight on that, and from your own experience too?
The big thing is that I've witnessed over my career is that suddenly your baby is not a baby anymore. You've got this tiny newborn, and the faux pas that a lot of parents make, and often dads or mums as well, is suddenly you make number 1 more grown up than they're ready to be. And you can say, don't touch, be careful, and it's like, whoa, hang on a minute. So I always say, respect that they're still very little, they were your firstborn, involve them as much as possible, and when they go to touch your newborn, instead of going, don't touch, you just take their hand and go, let's touch their toes. Let's touch their hands, because they always go for their head.
Because they just want to so bad.
And mums are always being told, be careful of the fontanelle in the head. Well, it actually would take a lot for that child to hurt that fontanelle. So just take their hand gently and go, look at their eyebrows or look at their toes, and use diversion rather than. And it's very hard, even myself, having all these years' experience, when Tia was born and George was not quite 2 when she was born. I had to really put my work hat on and go, Sharlene, and also tell other people, just remember, he's not quite 2.
And it's such a big adjustment.
And then things like bath time, that's something I've always encouraged clients go. I did a job in Dubai many years ago with number 3 baby, and I used to bath him from 3 weeks old in the bath with his sisters. And whereas they think that they have to have separate baths because that's a newborn and that's a toddler. And I go, no, just get them involved, get them to wash their tummies and their feet. Lovely bonding, but it also cuts down job time.
Yes, it does. More efficiency.
And so there's lots of little things I cover in the book, tips on that.
That's great.
How to help.
I love that advice you just gave though, because it is, it's easy, and especially when you are worried about the baby's safety, to say to the older one, just no, just and you seek the pride and so on. But there's a few little pointers you can remember to help.
And forgive yourself for doing things not quite right. So if things come out of your mouth, you go, oh, I shouldn't have said that. That's okay. Just try. I talk about the 80-20 focus or rule. You're not going to be perfect the whole time, but if you can try your hardest to think about better strategies instead of that quick response or panicked response.
That's good to know. You can change it. Okay, so we'll wrap up soon, but finally, another final question for you. Have you got like one piece of advice that stands out to you, or reassurance or encouragement or something that you'd like to offer, if there's one thing you can pin it down to, for parents in this age bracket?
I guess is be kind to yourself, in that often when you start parenting in this age group, you're starting to regurgitate how you were parented. And often what comes out of your mouth is actually what you heard as a child, and so sometimes it is, you go, oh, I didn't like that, but that's what's come out of your mouth. Well, you've got time to be forgiven by your children, as long as you're open and aware to change. And then the reassurance, I think, the whole idea of this book is to make parents go, yep, I'm doing that, so that means I'm doing a good job. Or go, I don't necessarily agree with that, and that gives a parent confidence, because they actually can start registering that they actually do have an opinion, or do actually have feelings about how things are. So that makes the mum go, oh, I'm empowered because I'm doing that, or I actually don't agree with it. So I'm going to look further. So it's a good way. But this age group I always talk about is, even though it's challenging because they're starting to assert their personality, if you give consistency and you apply a good amount of time, it's really amazing. It's such a fun age. It's really fun. If you have the time to sit back and reflect, it's actually hilarious and fun.
That's when you get all the good stuff for the 21st.
The words that come out, it's just so much fun.
My mum was so good, she wrote lots of our funny and cute phrases down. She was really organised. She kept all our plunker books and everything. I will just say as well, because I read the excerpt of the book, and I found the language and the way that it was written really easy to read. So if you're considering getting hold of this book, and if you are sleep deprived or worried that you won't be able to focus on something complicated, it's not. It's actually really easy to understand.
Well, I'm not a scholar.
but for parents, you've got it. It's so good.
And I wrote it when I was pregnant with Tia, so it was quite good, because I was in that mode, and I'm not a scholar, I'm a doer. And so I write as I would be doing, and that's what I think appeals to a lot of minds.
So I think I'm so keen to read, because I'm going into this for the third time now, and it sounds silly, but actually with the last two it's almost already a bit blurry.
I was going to say a blur.
It's like, what did I do? Was this stage, I can't remember.
I
think maybe I've blocked it out, I'm not sure. But so we're actually, do you want to tell us where we can get this book actually?
So most leading bookshops, so the Warehouse, Whitcoulls, Paper Plus, also on my website, and I think Mighty Ape, and
Fish Pond.
But I think that's about it.
Cool. And what's your website?
SharlenePoole.com.
Cool. Nice and simple. Okay. And Paul has an E on it, by the way.
Yes, so well
and your Facebook page, if anybody wants to follow you on there.
Facebook or Instagram. So it's Sharlene-Poole at Little Miracles.
Cool.
And you can see it through my website as well.
Awesome.
And Instagram is my email address, which is charlene@littlemiracles.co.nz.
Okay, that's great. Alright, I might actually later on go and pop those into the comments or on the description of this if anybody wants to go and follow if they're watching on replay. So I would like to thank you for coming on and chatting with me. I could keep asking questions because I'm definitely in that zone, but we will wrap it up. We're going to do a giveaway. We've got a book to give away. And all you need to do to enter is in the comments, you just need to cover one of the hot topics. Just write down one of the hot topics that is covered in here. So we just talked about, I think, 3, and Sharlene mentioned some more earlier. So there's probably one that's relevant to you right now, so just pop that in the comments. We'll leave this competition up for a good 24 hours and we'll draw a winner on Thursday. So good luck, and I'm sure the winner will enjoy their new book. Bye for now.
Bye.